I want to bring in Democratic strategist Sawyer Hackett and former Trump campaign strategist Mike Hahn. I'll begin with you, Mike, on this because, I mean, how does the Trump administration justify his economic policies on the campaign trail when the debt is now hitting $40 trillion?
Well, look, national debt isn't a new issue here, right? It's
no, it's
over
not,
the course
but
of many presidential administrations, and also goes quite back to COVID when Joe Biden was president and all of the government spending that we had to go through with that. But look, I think the Republicans have been leaning on the issue of trying to get a balanced budget amendment for the longest time. I mean, that's like the core principle of the House Freedom Caucus, which is all Republican. So you can also thank the Supreme Court, by the way, because they overturned the tariff rulings, and that tariff money would have went towards going to pay down a lot of the U.S. debt. But now we're collecting less than that because of the ruling. So that certainly doesn't help the scenario.
Would it have gone to the national debt, or would it have gone to building more vanity projects for Trump? I mean, I think it's one of these myths in American politics that Republican presidents are better on the economy and better with the national debt than Democrats, and it's just not true. Over the last 100 years, Republicans have added more to the national debt than Democrats, and that's adjusted for both inflation and for terms. And, you know, it follows this predictable pattern where Republicans run on slashing the national debt, and then they get into office and they immediately hand out tax cuts to billionaires and corporations, and they launch forever wars that drive up the deficit. So, and that's exactly what Donald Trump has done in his second term. So, you know, I think it's an issue that obviously both parties are going to have to deal with. We're all going to have to deal with it for generations. But if we're being serious about it, then we need to have this conversation that it's a problem for both parties, not just for Democrats.
And on that point, if the argument is, well, both have done something to contribute, but one person or one party is more at fault than the other, how does that impact voters who are looking at and saying, okay, I don't really care, but $40 trillion is the national debt. What's that mean for my kid, my grandkid? Me right now.
Well, look, at the end of the day, Republicans are going to point to the big, beautiful bill that was passed. And the average American family saw a 17% increase in tax returns over the last year. No tax on Social Security, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. The Trump accounts are also great for kids because they're investing in their future. We're talking about potential down payment on homes when they're 18 years old. So these are real life impacts that the Republicans have passed in this term, and they have an economic message to talk to, especially when inflation was rampant under Joe Biden. Interest rates were sky high. No one was buying a house under Joe Biden. And Trump has brought that down. Granted, we took a little detour with the Iran war, and I think he's acknowledged that. Republicans have acknowledged that. But overall, the economy is not worse under Trump than it was under Joe Biden.
A little detour with the Iran war? That's horrible messaging.
The big beautiful bill added $4 trillion to the national debt, and all of those tax benefits to, you know, average middle class Americans have been completely wiped out by both, you know, tariffs and the Iran war. So it's hard to make that argument that he's been a steward of the economy.
Well, I wonder if he's a steward for endorsements, because we have seen that a few Trump endorsed candidates, they did lose yesterday, including there was scandal-plagued Florida Congressman Corey Mills. Maybe that's a bit of an outlier. But you see, an analysis found that Trump-endorsed candidates actually have lost at least 10 races for statewide office or Congress. 6 of those losses happened just this month. I mean, does Trump's endorsement still have the same weight? Are you viewing this
every client of Frontline Strategies that comes in that is running a primary, the first thing we tell them is you go into the Office of Public Affairs and you ask for the president's endorsement.
Really?
It is the most powerful endorsement in Republican politics, and it will I think you said the number's 10. I mean, the other number's probably like 300 for the amount of people that he has endorsed that have won. In the races, you mentioned Corey Mills. I don't count that one. And the folks that did win weren't any less MAGA than Trump is. So I don't think that's an indictment on the president at all.
Do you tell them to campaign with him as well, or just get that little rubber stamp and go? Really? Do you think? I mean, given
welcome that.
Why do you welcome that?
Because his policies are toxic and very unpopular. He's a president with a 33% approval rating. It's lower than George Bush's was after the Iraq War. I think in swing states, in swing districts across the country, Democrats would absolutely welcome Donald Trump stepping foot.
Well, I actually asked Congressman Byron Donalds this very question, by the way, who's endorsed by Donald Trump. And he told me that he welcomes Trump on the campaign. So listen to this. We don't have it. Okay, hold on. We don't have it. But listen, no, he doesn't have Ron DeSantis's endorsement.
Sure.
And we know that there has been tension between the two in the past. But in a place like Florida, where DeSantis obviously was successfully a governor, people have looked at him very favorably for his policies on the Republican side in particular. Do you think that that person's lack of endorsement, when you counter someone like Trump's, that means something locally?
I'm not sure about that. I think the president performed incredibly well in 2024, even after Ron DeSantis ran against him. So no, I think the president's endorsement still holds a lot of weight in a state like Florida. But again, I would rather have the president's endorsement than someone like Hassan Piker in a state like Michigan or in a state like Wisconsin, where Democrat candidates are campaigning with this guy. So, you'd welcome the president on the campaign trail. I welcome Hassan Piker to campaign with all of these DSA kids.
We're talking about the president of the United States versus a streamer on YouTube.
Well, you guys don't have leadership in your party, and that's the problem.
We have plenty of leadership in our party, and we have plenty of great candidates out there who are making the case against Trump every single day, like John Ossoff.
Let's talk about John Ossoff. But hold on. Let's talk about John Ossoff because he continues to ruffle Trump's feathers by talking about White House staffer Natalie Harp. David Axelrod called Ossoff's comments quote, gratuitous and unnecessary and warned it will be a distraction. Ossoff does not seem to be concerned. I want to play that for a second. Listen.
I'm trying to make sure that folks in Georgia know the truth about this administration. And apparently, in the White House, the truth hurts. Well, the White House is obviously deeply offended when it's pointed out that they've broken every promise they made.
You said you'd rather have Ossoff. Is his statement impact that choice at all for candidates?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, I think, I respect and admire David Axelrod. As somebody who dropped out of college to work on Barack Obama's campaign, I've long revered his political wisdom, but I think he's wrong on this. I think John Ossoff, by inserting just 2 words into a soundbite about a presidency totally unfocused of the concerns of the American people, he started a national frenzy. He showed that not only can he both take control and hold attention, but also throw a punch. And clearly, the fact that they're so offended and outraged by this is a pretty telling remark, given the fact that this president has a very inappropriate relationship with this staffer.
Well, we don't know that to be the case, but I'll summarize Mike Hahn's expression and just say he disagrees.
That's a fair assumption. John Ossoff should apologize to Natalie Harp. He should apologize to President Trump. He is insinuating something that is disgusting about a young woman who solely works for the president. And at the end of the day,
what's he insinuating?
This is a guy who was trying to run in 2028, and he's not running in 2026. And Mike Collins is running a hell of a race down in Georgia, and that race is within 5 to 7 points, and not much money has been spent against John Ossoff yet. So this is a guy who really starts to need focusing on his race down in Georgia.
In that comment?
I don't know. That's John Ossoff.
You know what? Come on the show, John. I'll ask you the very question. Sawyer and Mike, thank you both so much. Still ahead, did the